There is a moment, not on the calendar, not marked by a birthday or milestone, but deep in your soul. A moment when something inside you stirs. When silence becomes unbearable. When the weight of who you could be presses so heavily against the shell of who you are that it threatens to crack you open. That moment is not a call. It's a war cry. Because this is not some polite conversation between you and your dreams. This is the war between you and your excuses. The excuses are subtle at first. They whisper. Not today. You're not ready. You need more time. It's not the right season. And like a coward crouched in the shadows, you nod your head in retreat. But let me tell you something that might sting. Every excuse you've ever believed, you built it. Every reason you've held on to, whether it came dressed in logic, wrapped in fear, or passed down like a family heirloom, was a brick you placed in the prison wall around your potential. And every day you feed it, you fortify it. You reinforce it with doubt, you cement it with procrastination, and then you decorate it with stories about why it has to be this way. But what if I told you it doesn't? What if I told you the battlefield of greatness isn't out there, it's in here? In the space between the truth you feel in your bones and the lies you've been trained to accept. That war doesn't begin when you fail. It begins when you justify why you never tried. Thomas Edison failed over 1,000 times before he created the light bulb. But when they asked him if he had failed 1,000 times, he said no. He said, I didn't fail. I found 1,000 ways that didn't work. That's the difference between the victorious and the forgotten. They see excuses as enemies, not allies. The masses bow to excuses like royalty. They say, it's not my fault. The system is broken. No one showed me how. But the few, the rare few who rise? They turn their excuses into fuel. They use them to ignite the fire, not extinguish it. Henry Ford was told he was uneducated, that he had no background in engineering. He was a farm boy with no credentials. But when questioned in court about his intelligence, he said, if I should really want to answer the foolish question you have just asked me, or any of the other questions, let me remind you that I have a row of electric push buttons on my desk. By pressing the right button, I can summon to my aid men who can answer any question I desire to ask concerning the business. That is the mindset of power. Not I can't. But I will find a way. Every excuse is a test. A mirror. A revelation of where your growth must occur. The moment you say I don't have time, the clock starts mocking you. Because it's never about time, it's about priority. The moment you say I don't know how, your ignorance hardens into a wall instead of softening into curiosity. You think success is about ability? No. It's about willingness. You don't have to know everything. You just have to be willing to learn. You don't have to be fearless. You just have to be willing to move through fear. Do you know what separates those who write history from those who read about it? It's not genius. It's not luck. It's not even timing. It's defiance. A defiance of limitation. A defiance of the narratives they were handed. A defiance of the voices, both internal and external, that told them no. Carnegie was a poor immigrant working in a cotton factory. Oprah was abused and told she'd never make it on TV. Disney was fired from a newspaper because he lacked imagination. Lincoln lost multiple elections and battled depression for decades. But none of them surrendered to the voice of excuses. They didn't wait for the world to grant them permission, they gave it to themselves. Now here you are. Listening. Not by accident, but because something inside you is tired of being caged. Tired of running in circles. Tired of watching your life play out like a rerun, predictable, small, forgettable. You weren't born for average. You weren't meant to live and die with your greatness still trapped inside you. There is a mountain with your name on it. But you won't climb it with excuses strapped to your back. You won't reach the summit carrying the weight of everything they told you you couldn't be. So here's the truth you need to swallow: you are the problem. And you are the solution. That's the beginning of your liberation. Not in blaming the world, but in owning your role in the war. The excuses you've made have been fed by your fear, by your laziness, by your doubt. But so has every champion. The difference? They stopped feeding the lie. You see, life doesn't reward intentions. It rewards execution. You can dream all you want. You can talk, plan, visualize, manifest, meditate. But unless you move, unless you act, you remain a prisoner of your own potential. You want to change your life? Change your story. Change the way you speak to yourself. Because your mind is listening. Every time you say, "I'm not good enough," your mind believes you. Every time you say, "I'm too late," it accepts defeat before the game even begins. But every time you say, "I am capable, I am resilient, I will find a way," you sharpen the blade that cuts through every excuse in your path. This isn't motivational fluff. This is war strategy. You are on a battlefield. And the enemy is seductive. It shows up in comfort. In distractions. In the safety of routine. It promises ease and delivers regret. You will never defeat what you continue to tolerate. Stop negotiating with your lower self. Stop explaining your delays. Stop defending your mediocrity. Because every second you do, you surrender a piece of your throne. And you were born to rule, not in arrogance, but in purpose. Not over others, but over yourself. That's the greatest conquest of all, self-mastery. But self-mastery doesn't happen in grand speeches or fleeting motivation. It happens in the quiet hours. In the shadows. In the moments no one sees. It happens when the alarm rings at 5 a.m. and your body begs for more sleep, but your mission speaks louder. It happens when you failed again and everything in you wants to give up, but you rise anyway, not because it's easy, but because you said you would. It happens when you silence the noise, stop chasing validation, and do the work no matter who's watching, because excellence isn't a performance. It's a way of being. This is the war between you and your excuses. And it is fought in the trenches of daily choices. Will you hit snooze, or will you stand up? Will you scroll for an hour, or will you build your craft? Will you tell yourself there's time, or will you realize that time is a luxury you're burning every second you wait? Excuses dress themselves as logic. As caution. As patience. But when you strip them down, all that's left is fear. And fear is a liar. Fear whispers that you'll fail. That you'll be judged. That you're not ready. But listen carefully, the voice of fear is not the voice of reason. It is the voice of regret in disguise, trying to stop you from ever becoming dangerous. Because here's the truth, once you realize what's inside you, excuses can't survive. Once you taste momentum, once you see the first crack in the wall, once you realize that the gate was never locked, everything changes. But most people never get that far. Most people never even try to push. They make peace with their chains. They decorate their prison with comfort. They smile while they suffocate. Don't be most people. Burn the script they gave you. Burn the excuses. Burn the idea that you need permission, approval, or the perfect timing. History isn't waiting for the perfect man. It's waiting for the committed one. The one who dares. The one who acts. The one who doesn't bow to excuses but declares war on them every day, every hour, every moment. You think this is just about success? No. This is about freedom. Freedom from the limitations of your past. Freedom from the habits that are killing your spirit. Freedom from the identity you outgrew long ago but never had the courage to shed. And freedom has a price. It demands that you leave behind the excuses that once made you feel safe. That you stand naked in the face of your own potential, trembling maybe, but ready. Because once you taste it, once you see who you really are beneath the lies, nothing else will satisfy you again. You'll look at the old life, the old patterns, the old stories, and they'll feel foreign. Like a dream you finally awakened from. But you have to choose. No one else can fight this war for you. Not your parents. Not your friends. Not your mentors. Not your heroes. Because even the greatest minds, Hill, Carnegie, Edison, Ford, they all reached a point where no advice could save them. Where the only way forward was through. And through means pain. It means doubt. It means silence, solitude, sacrifice. But it also means power. It means clarity. It means rebirth. You must be willing to let the old you die so the real you can rise. And I'm not talking about some future version of yourself 10 years from now, once life is figured out. No. I'm talking about now. The version of you who stops flinching. Who stops explaining. Who stops waiting for external validation. The version who plants their feet on the battlefield of life and says, I will no longer serve my excuses. I will no longer build altars to my limitations. I will no longer be the architect of my own failure. Because every step forward in your destiny is a step away from your comfort. Every level of greatness requires that you burn the bridges behind you. You must be willing to say goodbye to the familiar, even when it hurts. That is what they don't teach you in school. That the war isn't about talent. It's about refusal. Refusal to quit. Refusal to accept average. Refusal to allow fear to dictate your identity. And if you can do that, if you can fight that war every day, you become unstoppable. Not perfect. Not fearless. But relentless. That's what separates those who try from those who transform. The transformed don't just want more. They decide to have it. And in that decision, the excuses die. Excuses cannot live where decisions have been made. True decisions, not wishful thinking, not hopeful wanting, not maybe someday prayers, but firm, unshakable, this is my path and nothing will stop me decisions. That's the moment when the war starts to tip in your favor. When your mind stops being the battleground and becomes the weapon. Because the truth is this, you are not weak. You are not broken. You are untrained. You've been trained by a world that thrives on your hesitation. A culture that feeds off your self-doubt. Systems that prefer you stay obedient, passive, quiet, clapping for others while never building anything of your own. But you are not here to applaud. You are here to build. You are here to forge something out of the fire, your voice, your vision, your destiny. And that fire? It starts with clarity. Not motivation. Not hype. Not gimmicks. Clarity. Clarity cuts through excuses like steel through paper. Clarity is what Edison had when he faced another failure. It's what Lincoln held on to when everyone around him lost faith. It's what Hill taught when he wrote Think and Grow Rich, that burning desire backed by definiteness of purpose turns even the most ordinary person into a world mover. Without clarity, you hesitate. You wander. You drift. But with it, you become focused like a beam of light that turns into a laser. So ask yourself, what do you really want? Not what sounds good. Not what your parents wanted. Not what society celebrates. But you. The deep truth you've buried under years of expectation. Because here's the catch, your excuses are often masks for the fact that you've never truly admitted your desires. And if you can't admit what you want, you'll never fight hard enough to get it. Say it out loud, what? Do you want? Say it so clearly the universe has no choice but to respond. Say it so boldly that your doubts start trembling. Say it like your soul has been waiting for decades to be heard. Because once you say it, everything changes. Your identity starts aligning. Your habits begin shifting. Your environment begins bending to the force of your clarity. And when clarity fuses with discipline, excuses die at your feet. Because now you're not reacting, you're executing. You rise when it's hard. You train when no one watches. You study, you write, you build, you push, you bleed, not because it's easy, but because you decided. And that decision becomes sacred. It becomes non-negotiable. It becomes your standard. You see, most people live life by emotions. I don't feel like it today. I'm tired. I'm not in the mood. So they drift. They delay. They decay. But the few? The rare few who rise from nothing and build empires out of dust, they live by standards, not emotions. Their mood doesn't determine their motion. Their mission does. And you must choose right now who you want to be. A slave to your feelings? Or a soldier to your standard? You cannot be both. You cannot want freedom and still live inside a cage of comfort. You cannot pray for strength and still worship your weakness. At some point, you must choose the pain of growth over the pleasure of escape. Because both cost you something, but only one pays you back in power. That's what they don't tell you. That excuses feel good in the moment, but cost you your future. Discipline hurts in the moment, but gives you your future. And in that exchange, you either purchase regret or you purchase greatness. You choose. Every single day. So build the rituals. Build the systems. Build the walls that keep your excuses out and your mission in. Because discipline is not just an action. It's a declaration. It says, I will not betray my potential just to feel good for 5 minutes. That's what it means to live like the legends. Do you think Andrew Carnegie wanted to keep pushing when steel prices crashed? Do you think Walt Disney didn't feel defeated when every bank told him no? Do you think Napoleon Hill didn't doubt himself when he spent 25 years writing Think and Grow Rich with no guarantee it would ever change lives? Of course they felt doubt. But they acted anyway. Because discipline is not about being robotic. It's about honoring your destiny more than your distractions. That's where your power lives. Not in perfection, but in persistence. And persistence is what finally silences your excuses. Not by shouting over them, but by starving them. You simply stop feeding them. You stop telling the same stories. You stop rehearsing the same failures. You stop surrounding yourself with people who normalize mediocrity. You rise. You rebuild. You take the shattered pieces of your past, and you create a mosaic of unbreakable strength. Because this isn't just about winning. It's about becoming someone who cannot be defeated, because even when they fall, they don't quit. They learn. They adapt. They continue. And so will you. You will continue because that's what warriors do. Not because it's easy. Not because it's convenient. But because it is required. Required for the vision. Required for the promise you made to yourself when no one else believed in you. Required because you've been given breath in your lungs and fire in your soul, and to waste that is the greatest tragedy a human can commit. This is not just about personal achievement. This is about responsibility to the gift of life itself. You are not here to survive. You are here to create. To become a living example that excuses are not laws, they are suggestions. And you have the power to reject them. But first, you must get honest. Stop lying to yourself. You're not too busy. You just haven't prioritized what matters. You're not unlucky. You've just never been bold enough to stay in the ring after you got hit. You're not confused. You're just afraid to admit what you really want. And that fear? It can't survive the truth. The truth is, you know what you need to do. You've always known. The problem isn't information. The problem is the story you keep telling yourself about why you can't. And that story? That excuse-laced, fear-drenched victim script you've repeated 1,000 times? It ends today. Because a new story is being written. A story where you take back your power. A story where you rise from the mud of your own hesitation and build a foundation so solid that no storm can shake it. That's what real confidence is. Not arrogance. Not pretending. But knowing that no matter what happens, you will not fold. Because you've built yourself from the inside out. And it starts with purpose. Purpose is the antidote to excuses. When you have a purpose that burns like a wildfire, distractions become noise. Pain becomes training. And fear becomes fuel. Your purpose is your compass. It tells you where to walk, how to think, what to ignore. Without it, you wander. With it, you conquer. So find it. Or choose it. Declare it. Breathe it in every morning like oxygen. Remind yourself with every step, this is who I am. This is why I move. When you live with purpose, your life stops being accidental. It becomes intentional. And intention kills excuses. It turns every task into a weapon. Every habit into a soldier. Every decision into a step toward destiny. This is how legends are made, not by accident, but by alignment. Alignment with truth. With values. With an unshakable why that makes every how irrelevant. You don't need all the answers. You just need a reason that's stronger than your comfort. Because let me tell you something. Excuses beg for comfort. Purpose demands discomfort. Excuses say, take the easy road. Purpose says, there is no easy road, only the road that leads to truth. And that road is narrow. It's uphill. It's filled with thorns, doubters, rejection, and loneliness. But on the other side? Freedom. Peace. Fulfillment. Not the fake fulfillment of applause, likes, or praise, but the deep, eternal, soul-level knowing that you lived full and died empty. That you gave everything. That you took the war inside yourself and turned it into the greatest victory of your life. That you stood at the crossroads between comfort and calling, and you chose calling. That is what kills excuses forever. Not a motivational speech. Not a book. Not a podcast. But a decision. A decision that no matter how hard it gets, you won't quit. No matter how slow the progress, you won't stop. No matter how loud the doubts, you'll keep walking toward the voice that says go. You may get bruised. You may get mocked. You may fall 1,000 times. But when the dust settles, you will still be standing because you decided to stand for something. You decided to own your life. Not borrow it. Not lease it. Own it. And when you own your life, your excuses can't survive. They shrivel in the presence of responsibility. Because responsibility is power. It says, no one is coming to save me, and that's the best news I've ever heard. It says, if it's to be, it's up to me. It says, my future is not written, it's forged. So forge it. With every early morning. With every rejected distraction. With every workout, journal entry, deep breath, painful decision, late night grind, and moment of self-doubt where you said, I will not stop. Because one day, you will be the proof. You will be the one others look at and say, how did they do it? And you will smile because you'll know the answer. You killed your excuses. You killed them one by one. You didn't slay a dragon. You starved it. You stopped feeding it your time. You stopped giving it your belief. You stopped offering your identity to its altar of weakness. And day by day, as your actions stacked on top of each other like bricks forming a fortress, the old excuses crumbled. I'm tired became I'm ready. I don't know how became I'll figure it out. I can't became watch me. Because repetition rewires the mind. Repetition kills limitation. Every time you choose the harder path, you reshape your identity. You stop seeing yourself as someone who needs motivation, and start seeing yourself as someone who doesn't flinch. Do you understand the power in that? The power of becoming someone who doesn't need hype to move forward. Who doesn't beg for external permission. Who moves because it is who they are now. That is the true transformation. Because when you become the person who doesn't make excuses, you don't need willpower. You don't rely on discipline. It becomes automatic. It becomes inevitable. You wake up and train because that's what warriors do. You study when it's boring because you are building something greater than entertainment. You work your craft when no one claps because applause is not your fuel, purpose is. And those around you? They'll begin to notice. They'll call you intense. Focused. Obsessive. They'll wonder why you say no so often. Why you disappear. Why you choose the harder road over the easier one. Let them wonder. Because while they chase comfort, you are building character. While they chase validation, you are stacking victories. While they rest in excuses, you are becoming unstoppable. And soon, not years from now, but sooner than you think, the results will show. And when they do, you won't need to explain. You won't need to post about it. You won't need to boast. Your life will speak so loudly that your results will scream the truth. That excuses are not destiny. That pain is not permanent. That weakness is not identity. That you are not average, you are not broken, you are not doomed. You are becoming. Every day, every decision, every rejection, every ounce of pressure, it's refining you. It's shaping you into someone who doesn't just overcome, but transcends. There's a reason diamonds are born in pressure. There's a reason steel is forged in fire. You're not supposed to avoid the heat, you're supposed to use it. Because while most people retreat when life gets hard, the chosen ones step into the flames, and they stay there long enough to become untouchable. That's the real test, not whether you start, but whether you stay. Whether you stay in the discomfort long enough for it to teach you something. Whether you stay in the discipline long enough for it to become effortless. Whether you stay in the fight long enough to see the excuses shrivel and your power emerge. This is the war. And you're starting to win it. Because the battlefield is littered with the bodies of excuses you used to worship. The excuse of time? Dead. The excuse of doubt? Buried. The excuse of fear? Fading. And what's rising in their place is truth. The truth of who you are, beneath the noise. You're not a follower. You're not a statistic. You're not someone's projection. You are original. Born with something no one else has. And it's your job to bring it to life. Not when it's easy. Not when you feel ready. But now. Now, because the longer you wait, the heavier the excuses get. The more you delay, the weaker the voice of purpose becomes. Until one day, you wake up and realize, the war was never between you and the world. It was always between you and you. Between the part of you that knows, and the part of you that hides. Between the part of you that's called, and the part of you that's comfortable. Between the part of you that's destined, and the part of you that's afraid. And now you must choose. Because you can't keep living in the middle. You can't keep one foot in your purpose and one foot in your excuses. That space? That in between? That's where dreams go to die. So burn the middle ground. Pick your side. And if you choose greatness, truly choose it, then let that choice be final. Let it be so firm, so real, so unshakable that no fear, no failure, no rejection, and no amount of delay can undo it. Let your decision be a death sentence to your excuses. Because you are not weak. You are not helpless. You are not lost. You are armed. Armed with the power of choice. Armed with the fire of purpose. Armed with the discipline of action. And with those weapons, nothing can stop you. Nothing can stop you, because the war no longer terrifies you. You've learned that pain is not your enemy, it's your teacher. That failure is not a wall, it's a mirror, showing you what must evolve. That fear is not a signal to retreat, but a compass pointing toward where your soul must go. This is where the shift happens. The irreversible shift. When you stop reacting to life like a victim and begin responding to life like a warrior. You begin to anticipate challenge. You don't just tolerate discomfort, you seek it out, because you've learned that nothing worth building lives in comfort's arms. You understand now, if you're comfortable for too long, you've stopped growing. And if you've stopped growing, you've started dying. Excuses seduce you with comfort. With the illusion that good enough will satisfy your hunger. But it never does. Because deep inside you, there is a soul that knows it was built for more. It knows that trophies mean nothing if they weren't earned through fire. It knows that applause is hollow if it came without sacrifice. And it knows that purpose means everything, especially when it costs you everything you used to be. You must be willing to become unrecognizable to the people who knew the old you. Let them stare. Let them whisper. Let them mock your discipline, your focus, your obsession. Because when your life begins to reflect the vision you've carried in your heart, they will fall silent. And in that silence, your power will echo louder than any voice ever could. You don't owe the world explanations. You owe yourself results. You owe the younger version of you the life they dreamed of. You owe the future version of you a legacy they can stand on. You owe the truth inside of you a chance to breathe. So breathe. Breathe into the fear. Breathe into the discomfort. Breathe into the resistance and step forward anyway. Because that's the move that kills excuses forever. Action. Not talk. Not theory. Not good intentions. Action. Even if it's messy. Even if it's uncertain. Even if your hands shake and your voice trembles. You act, because action is the cure for doubt. Action is the only voice that fear understands. Action is the sword that slices through hesitation and carves the path toward destiny. You don't need clarity to act. You act to gain clarity. You don't need confidence to move. You move to build confidence. That's what they never taught you, that motion creates belief. You think belief comes first? No. Repetition creates belief. Consistency breeds identity. And every single day you show up, especially when it's hard, you rewrite the code of who you are. Until eventually, there's no room left for excuses. Because they don't belong in the new you. They don't fit in the temple of discipline you've been building brick by brick, day by day. Excuses don't survive in the light of relentless action. They can't breathe in the presence of purpose-backed movement. So move. Move like your future depends on it, because it does. Move like your family tree depends on it, because it does. Move like the world is waiting on you, because it is. Every time you break an excuse, you don't just change your life, you give others permission to change theirs. You become the signal. The proof. The undeniable evidence that transformation is possible. That you don't have to be born into greatness. You become great through sweat, through grit, through unbreakable resolve. That's the real legacy. Not what you leave behind when you die, but what you ignite while you're still alive. And you don't do that by giving in to the voice that says later. You do it by answering the call now. Right now. Before you're ready. Before you're certain. Before the timing feels perfect. Because greatness doesn't wait. Destiny doesn't wait. And life? Life is not waiting. It's moving with or without you. The sun rises whether you're chasing your vision or snoozing your way through another day. The clock ticks whether you're building or making excuses. The world spins forward, so must you. And if you won't, someone else will. Someone else who wanted it just as badly, but made fewer excuses. Someone else who had every reason to quit, and chose to rise instead. Someone else who decided. So the question is this: when will you decide? When will you draw the line in the sand and say no more? No more hiding. No more delaying. No more waiting for perfect. No more pretending you're powerless when you know damn well you've been playing small. This is your moment. This is the war between you and your excuses, and it's ending right now. Because you're not going to negotiate with weakness anymore. You're not going to argue with fear. You're not going to consult with doubt. You're going to move. You're going to act. You're going to build. And the world? The world will have no choice but to catch up. Let the world catch up. Because from this moment on, you are no longer chasing greatness, you are becoming it. And becoming demands a burial. You must bury the you who waited. Bury the you who asked for permission. Bury the you who checked how many likes it got before deciding it was worth doing. The real you does not bow. The real you does not shrink. The real you is a force, not in words, but in walk. You don't need to announce it. You don't need to explain your evolution. Just move different. Speak less. Work more. Let the results roar. Because when you move from intention to embodiment, people feel it. The room changes when you walk in. Not because you're louder, but because you've built something inside that cannot be moved. You've paid for it with sweat, silence, sacrifice. And that kind of power can't be bought. It can't be gifted. It can't be faked. It is earned. It is earned when you stop asking, will this work, and start declaring, I will work this until it does. It is earned when you refuse to let your current circumstances dictate your long-term reality. It is earned when you stop living like a prisoner of excuses and start leading like a commander of your vision. And vision, true vision, is dangerous. Because it burns through fog. It pierces through fear. It reveals the places where you've been playing safe and dares you to go further. It says, you weren't born for convenience. You were born to construct. Construct meaning. Construct mastery. Construct a life that is unshakably yours. Do you think the giants of history had better tools than you? They had less. Less access. Less tech. Less privilege. But what they had more of was this, intensity of vision. An obsession with becoming. A refusal to bend. A fire that said, even if I have nothing, I will build something even if I have to carve it out of stone with my bare hands. That's what built the railroads. That's what sent rockets to the moon. That's what wrote symphonies and painted revolutions. Not talent. Not comfort. Fire. And that fire lives in you. You've just buried it beneath layers of realism, of adulthood, of responsibility. But what's more responsible than becoming the fullest version of you? What's more honorable than fulfilling the assignment placed in your chest before you even had words for it? The war is not out there. It's not in the market. It's not in the algorithm. It's not in the politics. The war is in here. In your discipline. In your consistency. In your inner conversation, the daily dialogue between the part of you that knows the way, and the part of you that's still seduced by the old way. But you know what to do. You've always known. And today is not the beginning. It is the breaking point. The day the old version of you is no longer welcome. Let the old stories rot. Let the old patterns starve. Let the old labels fall off like dead skin. You are not behind. You are not late. You are not lost. You are becoming. And this becoming doesn't happen with fanfare. It happens in the quiet. In the early mornings when no one is watching. In the lonely nights when everyone else gave up. In the micro decisions you make when nobody will ever give you credit for them. That's where the war is won. Not in one big heroic act, but in the thousands of tiny unseen moments where you chose strength over surrender. Where you moved forward not because you were sure, but because you refused to sit still. That refusal is everything. The world will offer you infinite reasons to stand still. It will reward you for mediocrity. It will promote fear, doubt, and ease disguised as logic. But those rewards? They rust. You weren't born for rust. You were born for radiance. And radiance is forged in resistance. So embrace it. Love the struggle. Welcome the adversity. Run toward the pain. Because the harder the resistance, the stronger you become. And the stronger you become, the quieter your excuses get until eventually, they vanish. And in their place stands you. Not the you they designed. Not the you they tolerated. But the you fought for. And that version? That version is capable of anything. That version is not built in a weekend. It is carved slowly, brutally, deliberately, through the pressure of choices most people avoid. You don't arrive at your highest self. You forge it. And forging means heat. It means hammer strikes. It means folding the steel of your identity over and over, burning away everything soft, until what remains is unbreakable. That is why most never arrive. They want transformation without torment. They want power without pain. They want the crown, but not the crucible. But you have chosen differently. You've chosen to stand in the fire until it does its work. You've chosen to stop blaming, stop shrinking, stop waiting for things to settle down. Because nothing great has ever come from the comfort zone. Greatness is born in chaos, in confusion, in conflict. And the greatest conflict of all is you versus who you used to be. You see, there is no turning back now. Once you've seen what's possible. Once you've tasted what it means to live with power. Once you've heard the whisper of your own potential calling from the mountaintop. You cannot go back to crawling. Excuses no longer seduce you. They disgust you. Because now you understand what they cost. They cost you your peace. They cost you your purpose. They cost you years. Decades. Chances. Growth. Momentum. Excuses are thieves in the night. They don't just steal dreams, they rob your identity. They convince you you're less than you are. They wrap themselves in logic, in reason, in taking care of yourself, but in truth, they are parasites. And now you are the cure. You are the force that will no longer let them live. Because now you are governed by principles, not feelings. You don't do it when you feel like it. You do it because it must be done. You don't act only when there's applause. You act when there's silence. You don't wait for clarity. You created one action, one discipline, one break at a time. Because now you understand, success is not an event. It is not a reward. It is a consequence. It is the natural result of waging war on your excuses and winning daily. And the win isn't loud. It isn't dramatic. It looks like this. Saying no when everyone else says yes. Showing up when no one asks you to. Choosing progress over perfection, direction over delay. Doing the work when you're tired, distracted, emotional, unmotivated, especially then. That's how the new you emerges. Quietly. Unshakably. You begin to look in the mirror and no longer see someone trying. You see someone training. You begin to speak differently. Walk differently. Think differently. You begin to command the room, not with arrogance, but with presence. And people will ask what changed. They'll ask what program you followed, what hack you used, what secret you found. But there is no hack. There is no shortcut. There is only war and the refusal to lose. There is only the realization that you are the gatekeeper of your destiny. That it was never out there. It was never dependent on luck, or timing, or resources. It was always waiting, on you. And now that you've shown up, truly shown up, the game is no longer the same. You've stepped off the path of the many and onto the path of the few. The few who wake up hungry. The few who don't need a second chance, because they take full command of the first one. The few who live not just for success, but for significance. You see, at the deepest level, this war isn't just about proving others wrong. It's about proving your calling right. It's about waking up and saying, "This life I've been given. I will not waste it. I will not hand it over to fear. I will not offer it to comfort like a sacrifice. I will not let another year pass in hesitation. Because hesitation is the rust of the soul. And from now on, you move. You move with certainty, even when you're afraid. You move with focus, even when the path is foggy. You move with discipline, even when your feelings scream otherwise. You move with love for yourself, the deepest kind, the kind that demands you rise. Because that love says, you are worth it. Worth the work. Worth the effort. Worth the war. And when you believe that, truly believe it, the excuses die their final death. Because what can stand in the way of a human being who has made peace with pain, declared war on their limits, and refuses, absolutely refuses, to go to the grave full of unused potential? Nothing. Nothing can stop the one who has decided to die empty. Because that person has seen the cost of a life half lived, and they refuse to pay it. They refuse to live in a cage made of excuses, comfort, and imagined limitation. They refuse to carry their greatness to the grave, buried beneath what ifs and somedays. That person, you, has declared war not on the world, but on the silent assassin of potential, hesitation. And from that decision, you rise. Not in a straight line. Not without setbacks. Not without doubt. But you rise. You rise because you've tasted something deeper than motivation, conviction. You've stopped asking the world for direction. You've started listening to your own soul. You've stopped waiting for the map. Now, you draw it. Every excuse you once believed? It's now just a scar, a reminder of who you were, and how far you've come. Scars don't weaken warriors. They validate them. Every scar on your mind, your heart, your past, it proves you stepped into the battle. It proves you showed up for yourself. And now, you're not afraid of failing. You're afraid of fading. Of becoming invisible in your own story. Of living a life so small, even your dreams forget your name. So you fight. You fight not just for success, but for meaning. For mornings where you wake up and don't feel shame for the life you're living. For nights where you can look yourself in the mirror and know you gave it all. Because that feeling? That internal peace? It's louder than applause. Richer than fame. Deeper than any number in a bank account. That feeling is what you were chasing all along. Not trophies. Not titles. But truth. The truth of becoming who you were always meant to be. And now that you've tasted it, you'll never settle again. Because the man or woman who's walked through fire and emerged whole is not interested in comfort. They're interested in impact. In legacy. In looking back, decades from now, and whispering, I did not waste it. This war. I won it. Because in the end, the war was never about beating the world. It was about beating who you used to be. It was about killing the version of you that waited for clarity instead of creating it. That waited for confidence instead of building it. That waited for someone to say go, instead of looking in the mirror and saying, I'm already gone. That war? It's been fought in the shadows. In the 5 a.m. alarms. In the lonely hours. In the pain no one saw. But now you stand on the other side. Different. Not because the world changed, but because you did. And that change? That quiet, defiant, unstoppable change? It's the most powerful force on earth. It turns doubt into fuel. Failure into wisdom. Fear into direction. And discipline into destiny. And so, this is the moment. The line in the sand. The final time you look back. The final time you justify, explain, defend, or negotiate with your lesser self. From this point forward, you choose the higher road. The harder road. The one lined with fire, friction, and resistance. Because now you know that's the road that builds you. That's the road that honors the gift you were given. That's the road that leads to your name being whispered for generations, not because you sought fame, but because you chose truth. The war is not over, it never is. But you're no longer fighting for survival. You're fighting for expansion. You're no longer asking, can I do this? You're asking, how far can I go? And when that becomes your question, excuses don't even enter the room. When excuses no longer enter the room, something else does. Freedom. The kind of freedom no system can give you, no relationship can complete you, no external success can replace. It's the freedom of alignment between who you are and who you're becoming. It's the freedom of waking up every day and knowing, deep in your bones, that you are no longer a slave to your past, your patterns, or your pain. It's the freedom of momentum of showing up so many days in a row that the world has no choice but to bend to the intensity of your presence. That freedom? It's earned. It's the trophy you don't wear, you embody it. It's the silent thunder behind your words, your walk, your work. And now you carry it everywhere you go. Not because you won something once, but because you became someone forever. This is what they were never taught in schools. Never written in textbooks. Never handed down at dinner tables. That the most important war you will ever fight is not with the world, but with the whispers. The whisper that says you can't. The whisper that says you're not enough. The whisper that tells you to wait. But you didn't wait. You stood. You fought. You acted. You fell and got back up again. You failed and used it to get sharper. You doubted but kept walking. And now you're here. Still breathing. Still building. Still becoming. Not because you were chosen, but because you chose yourself. Because somewhere deep down, in a moment no one else saw, you said, I refuse to be average. I refuse to waste the fire in my soul. I refuse to live a life that looks good but feels empty. I will not die with this power still buried inside me. And that moment, that decision, became the first brick in a new foundation. A life of discipline. Of clarity. Of courage. Of action. And now, you are no longer someone hoping for change. You are someone creating it. You are no longer watching others live the life you dreamed of. You are building it with your own hands. You are no longer seeking the way. You are the way. So if you ever forget, if the voices ever return, if the fear ever creeps back in, if the doubt starts whispering again, remember this. You have already won the hardest war, the one against your excuses. And if you can win that war once, you can win it again. And again. And again. Because from now on, you are not the victim of your thoughts. You are the commander of them. You are not led by your feelings. You lead them. You are not waiting for motivation. You move, and motivation follows. You are the architect of your future. The author of your identity. The final authority in your life. And the version of you that once made excuses? That version no longer lives here. So stand tall. Walk forward. Build without apology. Speak with fire. Act with purpose. Live with intensity. And die empty. Because you gave it all. And when the world looks back, when your name is mentioned, they won't say you were lucky. They won't say you were born with it. They will say, that one made a decision. And never looked back. This is the war between you and your excuses. And now, the war is over. And you have won. And now, you move forward, not as a beginner, not as a question mark, but as a presence. You walk through your life like a blade, sharp, forged, precise, because every excuse that once dulled you has been stripped away. What's left is lean. Focused. Unapologetic. You no longer ask if you're enough. You know that the question was the trap all along. The moment you stopped waiting for validation, the moment you stopped measuring your value in comparison, performance, or past, that was the moment you became dangerous. Because a human being who no longer doubts their worth is the most powerful force in any room they enter. Not loud. Not arrogant. But certain. Certain of their direction. Certain of their mission. Certain that no matter what stands in their way, it will not stand for long. And with that certainty comes presence. You don't even need to speak. People feel it. Because when you've won the war within, the outside world starts to bend in response. You don't need to demand respect. You command it not through force, but through embodiment. You are now living proof that the path of discipline, vision, and unrelenting purpose works. And here's the twist: the moment you arrive at that place, a new war begins. Because life doesn't give you one mountain to climb. It gives you an infinite range. Every summit reveals a new peak. Every breakthrough becomes the base camp of something greater. So don't stop. Don't think for a moment that you're finished. You're not here to reach one goal and retire into mediocrity. You're here to evolve. To elevate. To expand beyond the horizon that once felt impossible. Because now you understand, the real joy is not in the arrival. The real joy is in the becoming. It's in seeing what else you can build when you're no longer bound by excuses. It's in asking, if I could rise this far, how far can I rise? Because while most chase comfort, you now chase capacity. You want to know what you're made of, not in theory, but in trial. You want to test your strength, your vision, your limits, not to impress others, but to meet yourself at the edge. That's the new addiction. Not to ease, but to excellence. Not to praise, but to precision. Not to validation, but to victory over the former self again and again and again. This is mastery. And mastery is not a place you arrive at. It is a posture. A devotion. A discipline that sharpens itself every single day. You wake up with fire. You go to bed empty. And in between, you live like every hour counts, because it does. You are not here forever. But while you are here, you leave a mark. And that mark isn't just in what you build. It's in who you become, so vividly, so completely, so relentlessly, that others begin to believe they can do the same. Because greatness doesn't just elevate you. It liberates others. It shows the silent ones that their voice matters. It shows the broken ones that they can be rebuilt stronger. It shows the hesitant that power lives on the other side of yes. So when you walk, walk boldly. When you speak, speak truth. And when you rise, rise for others too. Because the final death of excuses is when your life becomes bigger than you. When your discipline becomes someone else's blueprint. When your courage becomes someone else's spark. When your refusal to quit becomes the echo that wakes up 1,000 sleeping dreams. You are now that echo. So carry yourself like it. You are no longer someone fighting a private battle. You are a lighthouse standing, unwavering, lit from within by the flames of every excuse you ever burned. And when others see you, they will not see perfection. They will see proof. Proof that it's possible. That it's real. That it's worth it. Because you didn't just kill your excuses. You resurrected your life. You resurrected your life, not in one grand gesture, but in a million unseen battles. You did it in the silence of early mornings when no one believed in you. You did it in the moments where quitting felt easier, but you took one more step anyway. You did it when no applause came, but you showed up like the whole world was watching. Because that's who you are now, someone who doesn't need permission to go all in. And when you go all in, when there's no plan B, no back door, no escape route, life responds differently. Doors open. Opportunities appear. People begin to orbit your gravity, not because of what you say, but because of what you are. That's what no one teaches, that greatness is magnetic. Not flashy. Not forced. But felt. It's not in your followers. It's in your frequency. And your frequency changes the moment you stop making excuses and start making moves. Now you move with rhythm. With weight. With purpose. Now you make decisions quickly, because indecision is a tax you can no longer afford to pay. Now you protect your energy, not because you're selfish, but because your mission cannot afford leaks. Now you walk into rooms knowing exactly why you're there and exactly what you're building. Because you're not guessing anymore. You're building. And what you're building is not just a business, or a brand, or a body. You're building a life that reflects your truth. A life that feels like home, not just from the outside, but from the inside out. A life that honors the battles you've fought. A life that proves you were never broken, only buried. And now the world sees what you always knew was there. And they'll ask, what changed? And you'll say, everything. Not because the world got easier, but because you got sharper. Because you stopped carrying weight that wasn't yours. Because you stopped shrinking to fit old rooms. Because you stopped giving away your time, your mind, and your magic to people who never earned it. You reclaimed your throne not as a king or a queen of others, but as the ruler of your own domain. And that kind of sovereignty cannot be shaken. Because it's rooted in truth. And truth doesn't waver. So now, when the storms come, you welcome them. Because storms test what you've built. They reveal the cracks. And you're no longer afraid of the cracks. You thank them because they show you where to reinforce. You don't chase a storm-free life. You become a stormwalker. You don't fear friction anymore, you feed on it. Because you know, friction sharpens blades. Pressure creates diamonds. Resistance builds muscle. You don't avoid struggle. You repurpose it. Because when you're built from fire, you don't fear the flame. And now, you burn with something deeper than desire. You burn with certainty. The certainty that comes from having nothing left to prove, but everything left to give. That's the mark of someone who has won the war. You no longer perform for approval. You no longer hustle for attention. You are centered. Grounded. Rooted. You no longer seek identity in outcomes, your identity drives the outcomes. Because you've built a life from the inside out, and nothing external can destroy what's been built internally. So now, you give. You give your presence. Your wisdom. Your discipline. Your example. Not to be praised, but to free others. Because that's what the end of the war reveals, it was never just about you. It was about who you become, so you could become a path for others. And now, you are the path. You are the message. You are the proof. And the old you, the one who hesitated, delayed, explained, excused, and apologized for their potential, that person is gone. Buried with the ashes of doubt. And what rose in their place? A soul on fire. A soul on fire doesn't ask for the world to change. It changes itself and in doing so, shifts the world. This is who you are now. Not the version they expected. Not the version that fits neatly into categories or plays politely by rules designed for the timid. But the version that woke up. The version that stood alone in the darkness and built light from nothing. The version that remembered who they were before the world made them forget. This version doesn't seek comfort, it creates impact. It doesn't talk about dreams, it builds them. It doesn't wait for moments, it becomes the moment. And this version no longer makes space for excuses. Because excuses belong to a life that no longer fits. They belong to a you that no longer breathes. You've outgrown the language of delay. You've outlived the need to explain your fire. Now you burn. Boldly. Quietly. Consistently. And every single day, whether the world applauds or not, you show up with one truth. You are not here to survive. You are here to awaken. To disrupt. To build. To lead. And to die empty because you gave it all. No more rewinds. No more hesitation. No more waiting for the green light from a world that never understood you. You are the green light. You are the permission. You are the legacy in motion. So go. Run with your soul on fire. Speak like your breath is borrowed from the divine. Build like time is short, because it is. And leave behind not just success, but significance. Because that is what this war was for all along. Not for trophies. Not for applause. But for the truth of becoming. And you've become. You've crossed the threshold. You've stared your fear in the eye and moved anyway. You've buried the old version of you beneath the weight of thousands of micro-victories. And now you stand. Whole. Strong. Awake. And ready. So here is the final truth. There will be more battles. More doubts. More pain. But now you know, the war is not your enemy. The war is your refiner. And excuses? They're not even in the room anymore. Because now, when the world gets quiet, when the noise dies down, when you're left alone with nothing but your breath and your heartbeat, you'll hear one sound. Steady. Calm. Unmistakable. It's the sound of a soul that has finally come home. It's the sound of you without noise, without shame, without fear. Just purpose. And in that stillness, you will know the truth. This was the war between you and your excuses. And you have already won.